All right. Yeah, how are you doing? Yeah, you have that book now. You've had it for a few days. Is it interesting? Are you like did you know what was in it already, or how's that going? Oh, you've already read it. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, cool. Great. Yeah, I might have to borrow it from Blaine when you're finished with it. Cool. Cool. Um, Yeah, is it just about prime numbers, or is it about like the distribution of primes? Okay. Oh, neato. Yeah, yeah. Sounds interesting. Does it talk about that? I guess this was written in 2012, so because yeah, there's been some pretty major developments in the distribution of prime numbers. I'm not super well versed in the Riemann hypothesis. I believe that it has something to do with like the roots of the Riemann zeta function being integers or something like that. Hmm. Yeah. Oh. Okay. And isn't there like an like applications to the distribution of primes somehow? Mm-hmm. That's cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very cool. Because yeah, there has been some developments in the twin primes conjecture, right? Like fairly recently. Um, yeah, yeah. He came. Yeah, he came to the University of Waterloo when I was there. I got to see him. He did a presentation. Yeah, it was pretty neat. Because yeah, he didn't prove the twin primes conjecture, but he made a pretty giant leap towards it. He found um, I guess what would you call it, like an upper bound of the gaps between them, and it was like something like I don't remember the exact result, but he didn't show that there's an infinite number of primes that are like that have a difference of two, but like which is the twin primes conjecture, but he showed that there are an infinite number of primes that have a difference of like 100 gajillion or some finite number, but he found that there is like an actual finite number. Okay. Yeah. Okay, that's what I'm thinking of. Um, yeah, I got their. Yeah, yeah, I must have got their names mixed up. No, I don't. Oh, are you? Oh, very cool. How do I? You'll have to send me some links. I'd be interested to read some of your articles. Are they? Yeah, you're right. It is Yiting Zhang. Mm-hmm. Right. Is it really just 4,000? Hmm. Wow. Wow. Is it? I wonder. Is it just a computational thing now? That's pretty neat. Mm. How are you doing, Diana? Are you able to have some time to do some research now? How's that going? Oh yeah, absolutely. Articles are absolutely fine. Yeah, as long as it's a credible source, then yeah, you can use whatever source you like. Hmm. Um, how do you mean? Hmm. Right on. Do you guys know how to use Google Scholar? Okay. Yeah, that's a great place to find free articles, and plus you've got like Google's search engine powering it, so it's a great place to find articles. I think that was pretty much my primary search engine in grad school. Even though like you have access to like all these private journals and everything, I found that a lot of the big articles that I found really important. Um, Sorry, there's just this weird sound in my apartment right now. I don't know if you can hear that. It sounds like you know uh, I forget what you call them, but like those devices that um, measure like I don't know, like nuclear radiation. You know, it sounds like that. What the heck is that? What is going on here? Hold on a second. Yeah, it turns out it was just my speakers. I had my stereo turned on, and it must have been picking up some kind of interference. It's so weird. I just turned off the stereo, and like none of the other devices, like none of the inputs were turned on. But yeah, it's strange. It's very distracting. But yeah, it sounds like you guys are in good shape though, eh? Like Maya, you're reading that book, and Diana, you found a few sources, like some articles. Right on. Yes, the archive is a great source. Well, that's a great place to start, right? Is yeah, just reading abstracts. Um, I think a lot of people what they do, and I don't think this is necessarily a good practice, but it is very common for people if like they want to pad out their bibliography, then they'll just go through a bunch of abstracts and be like, yeah, that's kind of related to my topic, so they'll include it. I don't think you should do that, but reading an abstract can go a long way, right? The abstract is intended to summarize the entire article in an easy to read fashion, right? So. It'd be great to have a bibliography. Yeah. I mean, I guess I didn't really put together like a rubric for this project. I'm mostly just interested to see what you find interesting, and like it doesn't like if you're gonna do like a paper and you're gonna be like citing things, then I would assume that you would have a bibliography, but it's not required. Like I think like Nick and Ben are gonna sort of like do their own research. Like they're looking into, I guess like the statistics of like video games streaming, and they're just going to collect their own results. And I mean, I think that's really interesting. And they might use like some formulas or something, but I don't think that a lot of their research project is going to be about like a particular area in math. It's just kind of more of a research project that is their own research. So in that case, like I don't think that they would need a bibliography because it is original research. So yeah, I don't think that a bibliography is required, but I mean if it's going to be a topic that you aren't an expert in, and you're learning about something, and you're reading different sources, then yeah, it'd be a good idea to have some sources. Like it doesn't have to be exhaustive, but like one or two sources I think would be fine. Well, yeah, I mean, it really depends on what you want and the format of your project. Like if we were all in person, then I would have kind of had some kind of requirement about presenting to the rest of the class. I think that presenting like a scientific topic, or in this case mathematical, is it's a really good skill, right? And I actually have a really good short little article that I guess I can still share it with you. I was planning on sharing it with you when we were like face to face, and I was going to have everyone present their topics. But the article is just about how to present like a technical presentation effectively, because there's a lot of things that can go wrong when you present something technical, right? Primarily, like it can just be really boring, right? So it kind of goes over different ways of keeping your audience's interest. Some things to keep in mind, like often when you're presenting to an audience, especially when you're a student, there's usually somebody in the room who's kind of like the most, like it sounds really maybe elitist, but there's usually someone who's like the most important person, and often that's like the teacher, right? Is like, oh, I'm presenting to the teacher is marking me. And so what happens a lot is that in presentations, you have a tendency to just be constantly looking at the teacher, and you sort of ignore the rest of your audience, and then you lose the interest of the audience, and then it's not a very good presentation. And even to the teacher or whoever maybe it's your supervisor, or someone who you really respect, or whoever it is, and it's usually very apparent to them as well that you're only addressing this one person. So there's things like that. Also, if you're planning on doing like some kind of like a beamer, like a PowerPoint or some equivalent to that, it's often referred to as a beamer presentation, because like you beam the presentation onto a projector screen. Anyway, the article that I have, it kind of outlines some do's and don'ts for beamer presentations. Primarily, the big one. Well, there's two really important aspects of like a good PowerPoint presentation. The first one, like the golden rule, is don't have too much information on each slide. Like each slide should just have a few words on it, like maybe a fact or an equation, a single formula. But as soon as you start having, like the whole screen is just filled up with this, and that, then it's just overwhelming and no one can read it. You have to remember that in a good presentation, like you should be the subject. Like you should be what people are looking at. You should be making eye contact. It should be like a human to human experience, and not just, okay, everyone's just going to look at my PowerPoint and I'm going to hide in the corner and just read each slide. Which brings you to point 2, that your PowerPoint or whatever you call it, your Beamer, your Google Slides, your slide deck, whatever it is, you don't want that to be like your script, right? Like you should never be reading off of your PowerPoint. It should be, you're having a dialogue. Maybe the audience is involved in the dialogue, maybe not. Maybe it's just you talking. But you should be in dialogue, and the PowerPoint should be there to kind of just mark down the most important points, and then also to just write down some things that don't really make sense to say aloud, like a complicated equation. Like you don't want to be saying like, oh yeah, like the quadratic formula is x equals negative b plus or minus the square, blah blah blah. Like that, it doesn't really make sense to hear an equation, so it makes sense to see it. So thinking of the PowerPoint as kind of secondary to you, that you are you are the presentation. Like the presentation is you, and that the PowerPoint or whatever program you're using, that presentation is just like supplementary, just a few points that you don't really want to say aloud, some equations that are too complicated to write down. Sometimes it's nice to have a little summary of things that you've said. The beginning of a PowerPoint in a good presentation should always outline all the topics that you're going to talk about, so people have kind of an indication of where we're going, like what the goal is. Like, okay, so at first what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about points A, B, C, and D, right? And then point A is like kind of like a history of the problem or whatever, and then the last point is kind of like the big result and the most interesting thing, and everything should build up to that. So those are some of the topics that come up in that article. So I can share that with you. I'll put it on Google Classroom. It's a good thing to have, even if you're not going to present this project, just to have it on hand, because especially if you're going to university and you're planning on studying something technical, you'll probably do some presentations. And like doing a presentation in math or even in science or anything technical like computer science, it's I think actually this article was written for computer science students, and it's funny, it's aged, like it's I think from the late 80s or early 90s, but everything about it is still true. Just the only difference is that now it's not like a PowerPoint, or now it is a PowerPoint or whatever you want to call it, but back then, like the author refers to like transparencies, like from like an overhead projector, you'd have those transparent pieces of plastic that you'd write with a marker. But all the points are still valid. It's just talking about having an engaging presentation. But yeah, I guess all that is to say, you can do a presentation if you want. but we'd have to sort of discuss how that would work. So I am allowed to have some students in the classroom by invitation. So certainly we could figure something out where we could come and we could try to like film it live or something and then broadcast it. That's certainly one option. Another option would be that you could just present it from home. That would require a good, good access to internet. Or we could try to figure something else out. We could try to be creative. Like maybe it's not live, right? And I could put it on my YouTube channel, and then everyone could watch it. Or if you have your own YouTube channel or some other way of broadcasting it, then we could do that. But if you do want it to be live, then we would have to talk about that. I know that I have very little difficulty going live at home. I have a good internet connection, and I have a very nice computer that can encode video on the fly and all of that. At school, I've had difficulties because the computer that I have is not very good. But I'm sure we could figure something out, especially if you're willing to bring your own computer. I'm sure that if you have your own computer, if it's been built in the past 5 years, it's probably much better than the computer that I have. I think the computer I have, even though it's one of the better ones at Grant Park, I think it's about 7 or 8 years old. So even if it's just a few years younger than that, I'm sure it would go a long way. So yeah, we could figure something out. Wait, is it because I think you mentioned that you wanted to do a presentation? Isn't that right, Maya? Or thereabouts? Yeah. That's right. That's right. It has to be 3 minutes, eh? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Would you like some technology? Like, do you have, like, did you want to do some animating or anything like that? Because I'm sure we have some stuff at school. I know Mr. Dewick has those the Wacom or the Wacom pen tablets. Like if you wanted to do some animating, I'm sure we could give you some. Yeah. Do you want me to look into that? You know Mr. Dewick, right? Yeah, he's the high school art teacher. Oh right, he was here last year, but he did the junior high, and then he's new to high school this year. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah, he's awesome. Fun fact: he taught at Isaac Brock a couple of years ago, and that's where I taught last year. And not only did he, so we didn't actually work together because I got his old job, or kind of like a permutation of his job. He taught social studies, art, and technology, and then I taught math, art, and technology. He's a very, very good teacher. He's like, one of those like just fantastic teachers. Just like all the students love him. So I had very big shoes to fill. There was a big gap that he left when he left Isaac Brock, and of course I was there to fill it in. It was my first year teaching, so I heard a lot about how they missed Mr. Dewick and they wished that I was Mr. Dewick. So, but yeah, now I get to work with Mr. Dewick. At the beginning of the year, the two of us we did like a bike project with some of the junior high kids. We went to the Wrench once a week, and yeah, so it's kind of funny because I heard about this legend, Mr. Dewick, and then everyone was talking about Mr. Doback, and then now I get to work with him, so it's pretty nice. But yeah, I'm sure that if I asked him, I mean, I don't want to, like, he may not be able to lend them to you. I can't make a promise on his behalf. So, but I will ask if you can borrow a pen tablet. Like, is that something you can see yourself using? Like, do you want to do an animation, or what are you kind of thinking? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So I can see if that would work. I mean, there is a lot of like technical stuff that goes along with that, right? I wonder. There's other types of animations too. There's a really popular style right now. I mean, it's been popular for quite a few years, but it's where there's like just like an overhead shot, and then it's like a whiteboard, and then it's just someone like drawing the whole time, but it's in fast forward, and then I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, like, and then the drawings kind of reflect what's being spoken about. So I mean, you could try something like that too. Yeah, and I think isn't it like that guy Minute Physics? Is that who you're talking about? Is it the same guy? Minute Physics. Yeah, I think. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I'm just looking at Minute Physics video right now. He's got he's got this kind of thing going. Something like that, you know? He's actually drawing it, yeah. And the nice thing about that is that, like, it's a very low overhead in terms of, like, setup, right? You just, you know, get, like, a camera. It could be your smartphone, and you could, like, put it on top of a box and cut a hole at the top of the box, you know, and then that's where the camera lens goes, and then you go underneath it, get some lights, you know. Yeah. Or think of something on your own too, right? Like there's a lot of opportunity for you to be creative with that. Um, mhm. Oh, really? If like that's June 12th, 11th. Well, if you need an extension, I'm totally happy to work around that, because that should be your first priority, right? Is your plan for next year. I cannot swing that. That's something I cannot do. Um, all right. See you later. Take care. Okay. Well, then why don't we end it here then? And yeah, if you need any help or anything like that, yeah, don't hesitate to reach out. But sounds like you're in good shape. Hopefully you'll be able to get some reading done this weekend, and maybe you can start writing some stuff down next week, eh? All right. Take care, Diana. Bye bye.